Well, hello, I'm Doug Apple, back with another special interview for you today. And Mother's Day has mothers on our mind this week. And the Bible clearly tells us repeatedly to honor our mother. And the older I get, the more I appreciate mothers. I think of my wife and how she gave birth to our 4 children. And yeah, I'm their dad, but you know what I did after they were born? I went back to work. But you know what my wife did? She took on the labor of keeping the children alive and well 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for years. I was looking back at an old picture of our family on a vacation recently, and a thought occurred to me just randomly, where did the kids get those clothes? And I thought, how did they choose those clothes? How were they purchased? How are they cleaned? How did they get packed for that vacation? I mean, on and on I could go, but as every good mother knows, that's the job, the task of mothering. I think it's probably the most important job in the world. But now we have Mike Sharman on the phone with us. And Mike, you sent me an article. So I read this article that I just read from Forbes. The title is Motherhood's Price Tag, the Financial Reality of Working versus Leaving. In other words, leaving the workplace. And it puts a price tag on how much money it costs a mom if she decides to leave the workplace and stay home to be with her kids. And I can say the article didn't make a mother want to stay home with her kids. I think it made her want to run back to work as soon as possible and leave her kids with someone else all day because she was going to be losing the chance to make more money and more money and more money. And more money. Mike, I feel like I should add an echo in there because it's like this haunting echo of more money, more money, more money, more money. That's what the American dream is, chasing after more money, it seems like. And something gets sacrificed in the process, and it's the children. But we're going to talk about that. We're on the phone line with Mike Sharman. He's the legal counsel for Share Healthcare, which is the nonprofit Christian healthcare sharing ministry that you hear about here on Wave 94. You can find more information on their website, sharehealthcare.com. But we're talking about mothers, with mothers on our mind this week. And Mike Sharman, I know you've done some reading and some studying, so I'm going to let you take it away.
Well, thanks, Doug. And I think your intro really put it in perspective is, what's the value of a mother, and it isn't the dollar amount. I was asking my wife this morning, I read this article from Forbes, and then I read another one of the Mother's Day index of the cost of what the mother contributes. What should her mother's salary be this year? So I'd read those articles, and so then I just asked my wife, I said, well, what was it that made you want to stay home with the children? Why did you do that? Because when she did, it was difficult for us financially. I'm an attorney, but I was a starting attorney. They don't make a ton of money, and having just a single income, 2 children. So I asked her, well, what was the reason you wanted to stay home? And she thought about it, and she said, I just wanted to be with them. Mm-hmm. I mean, how do you put a price tag on that? And the with them brings in so many different things. You're just there to hear and do many different things with them, and the fun times and the chores. I remember one particular family story, let's say we have, is it was in August Day, and the kids would have chores in the morning. And then one of our nearby country clubs let people come by on a day pass so the parents could, who weren't members of the country club, could take the kids to go to the pool. So Nancy would have that for a treat for the kids every now and then. So that's good times, right? Hanging out by the pool, just enjoying things. But in the morning, their chore was garden, weeding the garden. And at that time, my wife had planted a big garden. To be frugal, et cetera, and have nice food and just be part of that homemaking thing. But weeding the garden, in the midst of it, our son, Corey, I guess he might have been 7 or 8 at the time, he just picked his head up from, bending down and plucking those weeds in that August morning and said to my wife, well, don't you just hate Adam sometimes? And she said, well, what do you mean about that? She said, well, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have all these weeds. And that's the good times, too, is just knowing, because she was, one of the main Bible study teachers, let's say, for them, because she'd just be teaching them as they go. Mm-hmm. But she was there to hear his complete and accurate grasp of Scripture. If it wasn't for Adam, we wouldn't have weeds and thorns and thistles, and that she knew he was learning, and yet she could say to him, well, just, finish a couple more rows and we'll go off to the pool. Mm-hmm. So she just wanted to be with them. But Forbes doesn't really bring that out in its article, and it's one of those consider the source. I mean, Forbes is a money magazine, mm-hmm. and their bottom line is a working mother may end up ahead by $400,000 to $600,000 over 5 years. Kind of figuring, all right, you're going to stay with the children while they're young and then go off when they're at school. And then they say, in contrast, a mother who exits the workforce faces a financial loss of $450,000 to $1 million when factoring in lost wages, retirement savings, and lifetime earnings potential. Well, I was so that's, like you said in your intro, Forbes does not make mom want to stay home for financial reasons. And I was surprised when I read that article, because the article does a good job of comparing the costs on particular items of staying in the workplace, leaving the workforce. Daycare, they say, costs $10,000 a year, or if you have a nanny, it's $50,000 a year. The after-school programs are $5,000 a year. Total child care costs for 2 kids, $20,000 to $55,000 annually. Total child care cost over 5 years, $100,000 to $525,000. And so on. I mean, it does those comparisons, does a comparison about commuting, and on and on. But, it was interesting. There was also an article of the Mother's Day Index, what mom's annual salary ought to be. And they say a stay-at-home mom ought to have a salary of $145,000 a year. And they did that by looking at, well, what work does a mom do? And then what pay would the person that she's filling that spot for, what pay would they normally get? And so they said, well, if you bring all that in, the moms would be making, or should be making, $145,000 a year. So a mom, they say, does a job of an accountant and an auditor, a baker, a chauffeur and shuttle driver, a child care worker, a cook, an elementary school teacher, hairdresser, hairstylist, and cosmetologist. And one I love is they say she also does the work of a judge, a magistrate, and other judicial worker. And it just goes on from there. And so they total all that up, say how many hours she's working, and they say, well, her income is $145,000 a year. But the real value is she's able to be with the children, and the children are able to be with her. Mm-hmm. On a much more somber note about the value of a mom being at home, one of the other main things I do, Doug, besides work as the main legal counsel for Share Healthcare, one of the other main things I do in my legal practice is I sue child molesters and the entities or people that have helped those child molesters. And for, about 7-8 years, I did seminars all over teaching other people understanding and litigating childhood sexual abuse. And I did this seminar to other attorneys. And it was a full-day seminar. And by lunchtime, I would have a line of people coming up to ask me questions. And the questions were as parents, not as lawyers. They were asking me, what can I do to protect my children?
Really? No kidding.
And I would say, the only thing you can do to guarantee their protection is to be with them.
Yeah.
Because the main molesters are the ones in child care areas, in schools, in day camps, in soccer leagues, just figure this out. Wherever children are, that's where the molesters go.
Hmm.
And the only one who can really protect them is that parent. And there's an awful lot of working mom lawyers now that I would hear from. And so that's how do you quantify that? Just knowing I'm protecting my child from things I don't even know are out there.
Yeah.
They don't have to be at risk because I'm with them. I hate to say this, but churches are a big place for child molesters. The youth groups, the Sunday schools, the pastors, the music pastors. That sounds awfully bleak, but believe me, it is true, and I have case files to prove it. So how do you protect your child there? Well, you're with them. They go to church with you. You're the nursery worker when they're little. You're in the Sunday school, maybe not the Sunday school teacher, but you might be the Sunday school aide, on and on. You're with them.
Right.
And that's so vital. That ability at home, back on a good note, just reading them stories, talking with them, being able to hear their fun little quips like, don't you just hate Adam sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
Those just wonderful things that go on, that begins the conversation. That starts the conversation that then goes on through their lifetime. When they're teens and they're having all the questions that teens have, if you've begun that conversation when they're little and really have them feel comfortable that you are with them,
mm-hmm.
they'll be talking to you when they're teens. When they go off to college or vocational school or in their first jobs, they'll be talking to you about it if you've begun that conversation with them then. I see so many families that are the two income families, and the kids are off at school, whether it's public or private, and then they go to their sport activity, and then they go to their summer camps. And you don't have so much a family because they don't talk to one another. They aren't around one another enough to really know each other that well.
Mm-hmm.
That what you really have is a financial unit.
Mm.
And they don't have the intimacy of being brought into one another's inner circle. They just don't. How could they be? The child's at school or daycare many more waking hours than they would be with either one of the parents. So what we want to be doing, remember, as Christians, we're supposed to try to be imitators of Christ, right? That's what the Scripture says. So how are we imitators of Christ in this? Well, what was Christ, what I call his Christmas name? Emmanuel, God who is with us. What better gift can we give our children than to be Christ-like, imitators of Christ in that way, and be with them? So, Doug, when you were growing up, what was the standard house like? And how many cars did the standard family have?
Well, when I was growing up, the standard house, at least all around me that I was familiar with as a kid, was you had dad working, mom at home, and usually just one car. I remember.
And what was go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember when we got our second car, just to have something so mom could putter around in, and it was this ancient car from some family member that was like some old antique that rolled out, and it was going to be, well, if you need to, drive over to the grocery store and not walk in the rain, you can take this car.
Yeah. And that was your family, but was that fairly standard for other families around you?
That was all the families around me that I was aware of.
Yeah. And what was the physical house like that was the standard of your time and where you lived?
Well, they were a lot smaller than they are today.
Mm-hmm. So I grew up in Northern Virginia. In Northern Virginia, basically since Franklin Roosevelt's time, has been a good income area. It wasn't what it is today. There are the three richest counties in the nation are in Northern Virginia and Maryland right now, within the D.C. suburbs. But it wasn't the case then. It was, you had people who were good government workers and the companies that supported them, and it was good income. So it wasn't like it was poor area or anything. It was good income. But the standard house was a small brick Cape Cod that if you bought it new, it would have 2 bedrooms to 3 bedrooms on the floor and 1 bathroom. You'd have an unfinished basement and an unfinished attic that you could finish out. And it wouldn't have air conditioning, of course. And that's the way they all were. I mean, our house didn't have air conditioning, and we had 5 kids. But that was the norm. You had a modest house that you could afford to buy and get into. And as you mentioned, people would have 1 car. Well, those are no longer the norms, nor are they considered to be adequate by couples who are getting married now and starting off. And because it's not considered the norm, developers don't build them. And so people are pushed into a position of feeling like they have to have 2 incomes, which is not true. There are ways that a single income can afford to support a family today. With Share Healthcare, we're really pleased to be able to give families one solution. So many times I'll hear that the dad might be an entrepreneur, or they might be a ranching or farming family, or he has a good job, but he doesn't have insurance, and mom has to work because that's where the family's health care comes from. And it's not that they want her to work. She doesn't want to have to do that job. It might not even be a particularly well-paying job, but her job gets them the health insurance. Well, Share Healthcare is not health insurance, but it is a vehicle for Christians to share one another's medically necessary medical expenses. We're a 501c3 Christian ministry, and it's akin to passing the plate across the nation, or thinking of it as a healthcare cooperative, where it's just a group of people helping one another share their medically necessary medical expenses. So how does this help mom stay at home? How does this help her earn the at-home salary of $145,000, the equivalent of it, versus having to go out and get a job because she has the health insurance? Well, this is for a family of 4. It's $349 per month in Share Healthcare versus $2,600 a month for an employer-provided health insurance for a family of 4. So if a family of 4 wants to be members of Share Healthcare, then it's $349. If they have more children, it's $50 per child more. Or if it's a couple just starting off, we're $249 per month. If it's a single who's wanting to begin saving money for the future and propose or look toward planning a family later, it's $149 per month for a single. So this is just one way that families can bring mom home or plan to have a stay-at-home mom when that couple begins having children, or when that single person begins having a family. This is just one tool they can use, and there's so many more that they can begin looking at how not only can mom begin that $145,000 equivalent of work, but how can she actually generate income at home? There's so many different ways of doing that.
Mm-hmm. So if people want to find out more about Share Healthcare, what's their next step?
Well, look it up on the web, sharehealthcare.com, sharehealthcare.com, and rummage around the website and write down your questions as you go. And then when you have your list of questions that you would like to ask somebody, you can then call 1-844-SHARE-HC, 844-SHARE-HC.
Well, it might be a good way for mom to be able to stay at home by checking into Share Healthcare. And Mike, as we wrap up our time today, I thought I'd give you a chance to talk a little bit about your own mother.
Well, my mom's first memory was sitting on a cotton bag that her mom was pulling up between the rows of cotton that she was picking. And she remembers a time that her dad hauled their shack, I guess you could say, their worker house, he put it on skids and hauled it from one place they were working to another. And so that was her earliest memories. I've got a number of the things that she saved in her scrapbook of her time in Borger, Texas. That's, I guess, her formative years, but her high school years were there. And there's Borger, Texas, carbon black all over the place, a boom oil town. And she has these little napkins from different tea parties that she and her high school friends had, which were imprinted. Now, that was when her dad had gotten a good job in the oil field, and so did the other kids there. But here they are during World War II and having these little napkins imprinted with the, whose tea party it was. And she had all the different scrapbook news articles clipped and put into her scrapbook of the notice of somebody's tea party or birthday party or what her and her friends were doing on different things. And then as she met my dad in California, when my dad had been a POW during World War II, and then the war was over, and he's been brought back, and she sees him across the street and says to her friend, "That's the man I want to marry." And so she met him and did. And my dad had always wanted to have a ranch. He'd grown up in Texas also, and he wanted to have a ranch, and he had heard about the ability to get a couple thousand acres up in Oregon with the money that had been saved while he was in POW camp. And so he went on up there, but the ability to generate income was not there. And those 2,000 acres were 20 miles from the nearest phone. And my mom, by then, had already had 2 children, and she was about to deliver the third, and she didn't want to go down off this mountain in a logging truck to the nearest phone and then get from there to a hospital. So they came on back and had more children and just kept going on from there. My mom had a modeling studio in California there, and it was Sharman Charm School and Modeling Studio. And she had my sisters be part of the models, and then she had gift shops later. Here in D.C., she worked for Embassy Visa. And she was always trying to be active. Now, on that with you aspect, I'm the youngest by 5 years. It was, stair step 1, 2, 3, 4, then pause for 5 years, and then I come along.
How far apart are you from the oldest?
9 years.
9, okay.
Mm-hmm. And so by then, my mom was working full time. And I can just tell you the difference in the childhood that my siblings had from mine was quite different. I felt like a latchkey kid, and they never did, because Mom was always there. Even when she had the charm school, the kids were with her and doing things like that. But looking back, I just am, and multiple times per week, I think of things that my mom was trying to do that I didn't notice at the time. Mm-hmm. And so what I would encourage to the younger listeners in the audience is pay attention to those things that your mother is doing, whether you are still an at-home child, if any of those are listening, or whether you're a college kid, or whether you're a young adult out on your own. Be thinking of and paying attention to those things that your mother had been doing and is doing now. Because there will come a time that you can't tell her, "Thank you, I noticed that." There'll be a time that either, like my mom, her mind is just gone. She went into dementia and stayed there for a while, and then passes away. And you don't have those opportunities to say, "Thank you, Mom, I noticed that love that you gave that was unselfish and yet intentional." So we want to be doing that. We're in that Mother's Day season. It's a good time to pay attention to those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage everybody to do that. It's biblical. It even comes with a promise to, honor your mother in this case. And I think of my own mom, and she passed away a couple of years ago. But even now, I still grow in my appreciation as I just look back, and even as I watch my own daughters now raising their children, and then I think of my mom raising us kids, and I just see, oh man, the amount of labor and work and the daily grind of whiny children and on and on. And my appreciation for mothers just increases as the years go by, and for my mom to put up with me like she did. And I just say, oh, wow. So thank you, Mom in heaven. And we appreciate the mothers and what you do. It's a high calling of God. Never sell it short. And please don't sacrifice your motherhood just for money. And if you want to find some answers for saving in your budget, then Share Healthcare might be just what you need. You can find more information there at sharehealthcare.com. That's Mike Sharman, and for Wave 94, I'm Doug Apple.